Miss Jules here. I'm back for another Nature and Me Saturday. I'm so excited to have you here. I can't wait to go to our second national park as well as study our second animal of the week. I also am wondering what nature is going to teach us this week. So have that question in the back of your mind. Go ahead and if you want to, pause your video, grab a snack, grab something to drink, find a comfy spot to sit in, to watch this video, and come back and press play and we will jump in. Now, one thing you might want to bring with you is your US National Parks map. Looks a little something like this. And if you'll remember, last week we visited Crater Lake here in Oregon. This time we're going to head east over to Yellowstone National Park. Now, Yellowstone National Park is really cool because it doesn't cover the whole thing, but it stretches into Montana, into Idaho, and into Wyoming. So it's three different states. Pretty awesome. And I want to show you this picture. Now, this is from Yellowstone National Park. How cool is that? Have you ever seen colors quite that bright in nature? I have not, and I didn't until I visited Yellowstone myself. All right, let's go on a virtual field trip so you all can check it out.
Scuba Jack presents Yellowstone National Park. The United States has some of the most beautiful and inspiring natural wonders on our planet. You can find many of these wonders in our country's national park system. From California to Maine, these national parks are definitely worth seeing in person. One of the most famous national parks is called Yellowstone National Park. Located in Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho, Yellowstone has been cherished and appreciated by millions of Americans. Whether you have already visited Yellowstone yourself or have been wanting to do so for some time, there are plenty of fun facts that reveal how amazing Yellowstone truly is. Some fascinating facts about Yellowstone National Park. Yellowstone National Park takes up around 3,500 square miles in the western part of the United States. If you were to look at a map of Yellowstone, you would see that it occupies land in eastern Idaho, southern Montana, and northwestern Wyoming. 3,500 square miles is a lot of land, so it would take you a very long time to explore everything that Yellowstone has to offer. The history of Yellowstone National Park is quite fascinating. According to historians, Yellowstone National Park has been the home to Native Americans for a minimum of 11,000 years. Mountain men and then organized exploration began in the Yellowstone area in the mid-19th century. However, one of the more notable moments in Yellowstone's history occurred in the year 1872. On March 1, 1872, U.S. President Ulysses S. Grant signed a law that created the park itself. This was extremely important, as Yellowstone National Park became the first national park in the United States. It is also known as the first national park in the world. Since President Grant's decision, visitors from around the world have flocked to Yellowstone National Park. There are many fascinating sites in Yellowstone. For example, one of the most popular sites in Yellowstone is called Old Faithful. Old Faithful is one of the most famous geysers in the world. It erupts every 90 minutes, which can make for quite an exciting experience. When Old Faithful erupts, you'll be able to see water and smoke emerging from the geyser. Make sure to take some pictures. Along with Old Faithful, there is the Yellowstone Caldera. The Yellowstone Caldera is the largest supervolcano in North America. It's a dormant volcano, so there's no need to worry about being in danger when visiting it. That being said, the volcano has had some massive eruptions in the past. These volcanic eruptions have also played a part in creating many of the famous geysers that you can spot in Yellowstone National Park. Yellowstone National Park is also home to a vast ecosystem. specifically, it is the largest remaining continuous stretch of primarily undeveloped land in the continental United States. This means that if you were dropped in the middle of Yellowstone, you would probably feel like you were nowhere close to modern civilization. Yellowstone has around 1,700 species of trees and plants that are native to the park. Some of these species include subalpine fir trees, quaking aspen trees, and the Yellowstone sand verbena, which is a rare flowering plant that is only found in Yellowstone National Park. Because of this, make sure that you're slowing down to look at the plant life in Yellowstone. You may come across a completely unique tree or plant that you cannot find anywhere else. As for animals, Yellowstone has over 60 species of mammals. Walking through the park, you can come across animals like black and grizzly bears, cougars, Rocky Mountain wolves, and coyotes. Yellowstone is also famous for being the home to American bison. These are huge creatures that like to graze in alpine meadows and grass prairies. While there were around 30 million to 60 million American bison on our continent, there are far fewer that remain today. Those American bison that do exist today are mostly located in Yellowstone. Yellowstone Park itself has many different climates. This is because the park itself is so large and includes both high and low altitudes. Spring and fall temperatures range from 30 degrees to 60 degrees. Nights, however, can go down to the single digits. In the summer, however, temperatures are around 75 degrees during the day and 32 degrees at night. The winter is very challenging, with high temperatures between 0 degrees and 20 degrees. At night, the temperature is often below zero. You definitely don't want to be outside in the winter at Yellowstone. Ultimately, Yellowstone National Park is extremely popular. Every year, millions of people travel to Yellowstone to see everything from Old Faithful to the American bison. Yellowstone is also a great place to go camping. There are over 2,000 campsites in the national park, meaning that you have plenty of chances to explore and spend the night. That being said, if you do travel to Yellowstone National Park, you'll need to be careful. As you are in a living and breathing ecosystem, you'll need to respect the animals around you. Make sure to keep your distance when you're exploring the park. Along with this, Yellowstone is known to be the home of forest fires. Every year, there are around 35 forest fires that are caused by lightning. About 10 more fires are accidentally caused by humans. While the danger of a fire occurring is relatively small, it does exist, so keep this in mind. Exploring one of America's most stunning national parks. Yellowstone National Park is one of America's most stunning parks for a reason. Its size is massive, and there are plenty of fascinating animals that you can see. Whether you want to go camp in the park or simply want to visit for a few hours, I encourage you to do so. Yellowstone is one of our country's most treasured gems, so I hope you visit it in the future.
Please subscribe to my YouTube page.
So cool. Such a fun virtual field trip to Yellowstone. I hope that you all liked that. They made a great point in that video about just how careful we have to be in protecting the animals and plants and species in our national parks. We have to be mindful and follow the rules, leave no trace. We'll talk more about that in upcoming videos. So awesome. Now I wonder, don't want to play it again, if you all have a guess as to which animal is our animal of the week. I'll give you a hint. It is an animal that we saw in that video. So before I change the slide, think in your mind or type in the comments, what do you think it is? The gray wolf. Wolves, they're so important to Yellowstone. I can't wait to show you this video all about how wolves saved Yellowstone. It's pretty crazy and it's pretty cool. So let's jump in.
In 1995, 14 wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone National Park. From there, those 14 wolves basically saved the entire park's collapsing ecosystem. Let's talk about that. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an upload, and let's jump in. On March 1st, 1872, President Ulysses S. Grant signed the National Park Protection Act into law, creating the first national park, Yellowstone. The goal of creating the national park was to preserve the natural landscape and wildlife for generations to come. The creation of Yellowstone protected most of the native species, but it didn't provide protection for most of the predators, like the wolves. As a result, by 1926, all the northern Rocky Mountain wolf packs had been hunted to extinction. Although reports of single wolf sightings continued, they weren't enough to hold the wolf's prey at bay. By the mid-20th century, the deer and elk populations increased substantially, resulting in overgrazing, particularly of the willows and other vegetation important to soil and riverbank structure, leading to heavy erosion. As a top predator, wolves were one of Yellowstone's linchpins, holding together the delicate balance between predator and prey. Their removal in the early 20th century disrupted food webs and set off something called a trophic cascade. The wolves' natural predators, in this case the elk, multiplied, all while consuming increasing amounts of foliage. This hurt the species that relied on that vegetation, like the birds who nested in the trees, and the beavers who used the willows to create their dams. And without the beaver dams, hundreds of native fish species started to decline. And as the fish declined, so did the animals that fed on them, like the foxes and bears. By removing a single species, a cascade of negative effects propagated outward throughout the ecosystem. In 1974, the gray wolf was officially recognized as endangered, and so recovery efforts were mandated under the Endangered Species Act. The very next year, the long process to restore wolves to Yellowstone began. But for a long time, problems were evident. The program lacked both the necessary funding and any meaningful willpower to get it done. Despite the fact that, legally, restoration was supposed to begin in 1975, Congress only got around to appropriating funding in 1991, only about 2 decades late, which by today's standards might actually be a fast pace. After receiving more than 160,000 public comments, the most of any federal proposal at the time, 31 gray wolves were drugged and abducted, or relocated as conservationists like to call it, from Canada to Yellowstone. When wolves were brought back to the park, they finally killed the overabundance of elk. The elk populations decreased from more than 15,000 in the early 90s to about 6,000 last year. And not only did their numbers dwindle, but the wolves' mere presence was enough to change the elk's behavior. They started to avoid Yellowstone's valleys and gorges, where they could easily be hunted by the newly introduced wolves. As a result, those areas began to recover, and by 2006, some aspen trees had grown tall enough to where they were too big to be eaten by the elk. These growing trees provided a habitat that allowed for a greater diversity and abundance of bird species, like yellowthroats, warbling virrows, and song sparrows, that were finally able to nest again. And with the increase in wooded area, beavers were able to return. The number of beaver colonies in the park increased from 1 in 1996 to 12 in 2009, allowing for an explosive growth in fish wildlife. It might sound a little strange that beaver dams help fish populations, but by rising the water level and calming the stream, they make it easier for fish to hang out and reproduce. For reference, Wyoming streams with beaver ponds have about 75 times more abundant water life than those without. And without herbivores eating so much vegetation, plant life along the riverbanks once again thrived, and erosion decreased significantly. The stabilization of these riverbanks even made the rivers change course. With the reintroduction of just a small population of wolves, the landscape of the whole park was transformed. While these transformations have been undoubtedly beneficial at preserving Yellowstone's ecosystem for future generations, this might not be set to last. In 2018, Congress added a record number of anti-wolf measures to the appropriation bills that fund the Department of the Interior that govern the nation's parks. These measures would block protections in the Endangered Species Act from applying to a variety of wolf populations and would likely lead to them being hunted once again. In 2015, it was estimated that there were about 500 wolves in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. That means that after only a few years of hunting, they could be brought back to extinction. That's one of the difficulties with conservation. It can take decades to save an ecosystem, but only a few years to destroy it. If we don't act fast, wolves could once again be subject to the same hostile extermination practices that pushed them to the brink of extinction. But hopefully, they'll be howling at the moon for years to come. I hope you enjoyed getting smarter with us today. If you did, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an upload. And remember, there's always more to learn.
Wow, I hope that you all enjoyed that video about how the wolves saved Yellowstone. It's pretty incredible because these animals have been hunted and we're endangered and we're possibly going to become extinct. And the wolves in Yellowstone, the numbers grew and grew. Now they decrease again. So it just shows us exactly why it's so important to protect our animals in our national parks and all over, not just in our national parks. When we take care of the planet and natural spaces, our animals can thrive and survive. And I think what really is interesting about wolves is they have been endangered and then off of the endangered list and back and forth, and they've had to go through a lot, but they're still there. They're still surviving. And that's what I want to think about when we look at what can we learn from nature this week. For me, I think what the wolves teach us is what it means to be resilient, why we should take care of each other, ourselves, and our planet. Now, we talked about being resilient last term a little bit. What does that mean? That means when you're resilient, it means you can go through hard things and challenges, but you can keep going. You can try to be positive, try to hang in there and keep trying, keep going. And we can't always control those things that happen to us. Sometimes there are going to be challenges. But regardless of that, we can keep going and try our best. And the wolves show that what it means to be resilient. Now, we can't always control what happens to us, and sometimes we can't always be super duper strong and fine and not need any help. Being resilient doesn't mean that things aren't hard or you can't be sad or upset or frustrated or need a break, because you do. Being resilient doesn't mean being strong all the time and never letting anything upset you. No, it just means that you can try to remember to keep going. And that's what I want you to learn. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to feel upset or feel certain emotions, but we got to keep going. We got to take care of each other and the planet, help each other be resilient. Sometimes we can't always carry all of that hard stuff ourselves. And that's what I think the wolves teach us. Now, in your kits this week, you're going to have a Yellowstone National Park coloring page, as well as a wolf worksheet with some information you can read, hear about the wolves in Yellowstone, and then quiz yourself and see if you can answer these questions below. There's also a Yellowstone word hunt, word search. Now, I would like you to grab your nature journals that we made last week and find a quiet place to sit outside or near a window, and then write or draw your answer to this question. What does resiliency or being resilient mean to you? Can you think of a time when you were resilient? Think about the wolves in Yellowstone. Why do you think it is so important to protect animals and our planet? Now, if you want, you can pause the video here and journal so that you can remember what the questions are. I know they're a little bit long, or you can come back to it. You don't have to do this, it's not homework, but it's just a way to fill out your nature journal and think about what we're talking about today. Then I have a little project for you, and that is how you make a nature mandala. So I'm going to show you this video and then I'll show you what the instructions look like.
Okay, Mustangs, here we go. This is a mandala, a natural mandala. In its simplest form, a mandala is a circular structure with design that radiates out symmetrically from the center. Mandalas can be found in nature as well, including snowflakes, flowers, cobwebs, and in tree rings. All right, guys, now let's head outside and look for our natural materials to use in our mandala. Remember, look for a variety of items. You guys know what that is. It's one of our principles of, you guessed it, design.
Yeah.
Which means what, G?
Means a bunch of different things.
That's right.
Now that you have found all your natural materials, go ahead and group them in order of alike items.
What you working on, Jess?
I'm cutting them so they can be the same size.
I see.
Here's a little inspiration to create your Nature Walk mandalas. I can't wait to see what you Mustangs come up with. Have fun!
So nature mandalas are super cool, and you actually don't need any supplies from me. You only need a bag, a bucket, a bowl, or big pockets to carry your nature items. And then those are the items you're going to use to make your mandalas. So don't forget, well, first, I want you to go on either a nature walk in your yard or neighborhood or nearby park. But of course, ask an adult permission first or go as a family. Or maybe go with an older sibling if you want to. Whatever your adult in your household says is okay. And you're going to collect fallen nature items. Now, fallen means they're on the ground. We're not taking anything off of trees or bushes or flowers. These are things that have already fallen on the ground. They're not living on trees or bushes anymore. Or little rocks, things like that are fine. Don't take anything out of other people's yards, only things in your yard or main spaces. Now try to get things that are similar to make patterns like they showed us in the video. Return home and make your nature mandala. Now you have this instruction sheet in your kit and it shows you, these are just suggestions of things you could find. You don't have to get all of those. It gives you directions on how to make them. See all these different designs? There's so many different ones. Everyone's will look different, but I would love to see a picture of yours after you make it. Nature mandalas are so much fun. You can make them almost anywhere, and you can make giant ones or teeny tiny, super colorful, or all the same color. Totally up to you. Now, that's all I have for you this week. I hope you enjoyed visiting Yellowstone National Park, learning about the wolves, what it means to be resilient, and I hope you have fun with your nature mandalas. I will see you next week for another Nature and Me Saturday. Bye.